Форум, скажите, пожалуйста. Да. Так, собственно говоря, вроде бы все. Все у нас. Да, у вас всех. Так, ну давайте начнем. Добрый день. Меня зовут Александр Цыпкин. Я буду...
Good afternoon. My name is Alexander Tsipkin. Together with Olga, I'm going to moderate this discussion. I'm the specialist on PR in corporate conflicts area, and I suppose this is not a conflict area to moderate it, but indeed the relations with the groups of consumers is a new economic trend, and in my opinion it would change the consumption structure because previously there was the maximization of this topic is heatedly discussed, and if Steve Jobs would ask which product to create, iPhone wouldn't never be created. But let's be fair. We are not all far from Steve Jobs, and let's ask people what they want to see, at least consult with them, and at least enjoy them, involve them in the realization of different ideas. I think this direction is quite interesting. With development of social networks and amid the situation when every one of us have become a mass media, a source of information. So we are quite important in this world. Every person can help companies and can impede companies from doing something. We are going to moderate this session together with Olga Zakharova, who made Gorky Park another planet, and today she is ADG Group Managing Director. They have a big project related to district centers, and the whole idea of this session is when experts working with social requirements express their opinions on advantages or rules, how to communicate with societies, with communities, and we would react on that somehow. We also invite you to take part in this discussion. The main idea is not to work out some rules, but at least to discuss how ethically and expedient would be to work with communities, how to take and to overcome the barriers that we have today. I'd like to give Olga the floor, and then we're going one by one. As you mentioned, the conflict still exists, and we as ADG Group, we collected this panel because every time we need to come to an agreement, but somehow not always we succeed to. When I started to work in this company, I understood that it's not possible to build something without people. And when we worked in Gorky Park, it was not possible to build something for people without people. Many people say that we work for people, but we can tell about it a lot, but unless you involve people really in your process, you won't get any result, and your words will be just words. When we created this panel, I wanted to invite people from absolutely different subject matter areas with the experience of working with communities, with population, experience of conflict situations, and because of my new job, new profession, I met a lot of interesting people who've become founders and still moderate different communities. As we know, communities can be split by territorial principle and by interests, and we're going to discuss it later because we want to tell you as much as possible from the real life what happens in reality between business, citizens and the city. And this love triangle, well, everyone wants to make good to everybody, someone goes wrong. In the love triangle, something is wrong all the time. But let's go over to our discussion. We have only 45 minutes, so 5 minutes each to the of the ladies from the panel, and then at the end some time for questions and answers. So let's begin. Anna Chingopin, development partner. Good afternoon. There was a phrase here about working with communities, with people who somehow exist in the territory of the city or the district. I have a slightly different experience of a developer who started to work in an open field, and developer's task was to build this community. And so my answer to the question to recommend a rule, I would formulate the following as a marketologist. We need to understand very good the target audience with which you want to build this community. And these are not just empty words. As an example, I can cite the micro-city in the forest, which has been started about 5 years ago, and that was the period of growth of social activity. Creative clusters came up, and the Gorky Park was developing very actively. And this project was focused on this audience, and all communications of the project were built with help of the language and the areas where this audience was present. And the product was created with the aim to accept the young creative class. And when developer consecutively realizes the product of an adequate quality in line with the requests of the audience and builds up communications, it allows together, of course, not all unified uniform audience, but a core which in perspective will be represented by this society. And I think this rule would be really precious and valuable. And now then, in this project, we've already launched the first turn. Sorry for my French, but when a few blocks of flats are populated and we work with this project, we see the people who really live in this city. And these people are very active people, energetic people, who with some minimum help from the developer's side who continues developing the territory, they organize themselves in interesting projects. They are engaged in the development of the territory, and they have some interest-based communities. They have kids, they have pets. This is a really interactive environment. Anna, could you tell us what community you created, based on which interests? Especially when you've come to the open field, you need to start something from the scratch. This community, as a result, should bring value to the company in a good sense of this word, because by creating the society, you get a business as a result. Yes, for sure, that's true. And what were the interests? We gathered young entrepreneurs. These are young people who are really ready to realize themselves, and from the point of view of their development and from the development of their business. So the developer formulated the project to open opportunities for these people. Just as an example, all first floors, commercial areas were not sold. They just was let for lease, priority for people. And then we come to this micro city, so practically all businesses, small businesses which are present there, small cafes, beauty salons, veterinarian salons, small stores, restaurants, grocery stores. These are all people who live there, and they become centers of attraction for the whole district. Question concerning mechanics. I wonder how you supported and satisfied the interests for rent. How technically you achieved that? Technically, we made it in the following way. When we started sales in the microcity, the concept of first floors was designed, architectural design was ready, and we proposed to all buyers to rent some premises, if necessary, for their businesses. And if there were two applicants, the priority was given to the resident of the microcity. So you call it the community of entrepreneurs. yes, they are also creative people, because if we look at those businesses there, they are quite creative. And what was your mistake that you made in your work? The mistake maybe was, and I would designate it as not as lack of integrity or sustainability. The project initially was focused on communication with these people. Then a break in the work was made, the developer strategy changed, and it meant loss of trust, and it make more difficult to work further, to attract people to other groups and to set up contacts. So lack of continuity maybe is a problem for restoration of trust. And maybe community helped you to somehow to restore this. We start this work, and developer meets us halfway. We have a position of community manager, and this person from the June 1st will work together with citizens there, with residents. There are a lot of infrastructural projects. The sales office is not 300 meters but 1,500 square meters, and part of it is given to people, to residents, for their meetings, for their events. And these entrepreneurs, these communities, have they done any events for people, for residents, or together with residents? They all of a sudden decided to cook some cake or something, and made a party of it. And my question about the involvement of people, not just cooperation. There is also mutual cooperation, but there are some vivid examples. They make some Saturday evenings, Saturday events. They organized the fundraising project. They decided that they need more workout events. I'd like to ask you also that many people would say, why should we spend money? We all bought flats here. We invested a lot. Let's build it for ourselves. Yes, there are nice sites, grounds, playgrounds for people, for kids, for sportsmen. But they decided to develop the nearest forest, and they decided to make it together for themselves, understanding the developer does a lot. Yes, there is a managing company subsidized by the developer, because not always have funds to develop the territory. Do you have online, offline network, social network? How do you work as a developer with the residents, with the community, supporting each other? Yes, of course, we have social networks maintained by developers, and there are also groups of residents, and we take active part in them, physically, offline and online. We have continuous communication there. Thank you very much. Let's go in the following way. Let's give everyone the opportunity to speak, and of course there will be questions afterwards. And the question to Nadezhda Snegireva, maybe the general question to all of you. To what extent do you think it's worth in working with communities to play democracy? Because if nobody would ask the British to exit the UN, they wouldn't. And now they were asked, and they say they would quit European Union. So it's about the democracy. Should you ask the community all the time, where is the limit? Because at some point you would ask a question, the half will say yes, the half no, and the other half will be not happy. I would confess that I don't have a clear answer to that, because we face different situations when some of our activities were not transparent. It would result in some tension. And anyway, we will still friends, but not 100%, because we all have our own interests. And we try to do try to be as much as open as possible. So you evaded this answer, yeah? But we go this way of trials, and all the time we have lessons. Nadezhda Snegareva is a group voicing partner, and for me it's interesting how you specify the specialist on co-designing. The vector is quite specific. This is about involvement of citizens, of residents in the planning processes of the urban areas. We all know about, all remember about businesses, about state government, municipal government, and the designing process shouldn't be one-sided. And in my opinion, we need to change something here. Many design decisions which are made from top to bottom are obviously inefficient. So I would start from the successful, and my position is quite obvious here. Once we say that we want to work together with people, with residents, and we should understand, should it be a residential principle or target audience principle, or shall we evaluate those who will be impacted by that? And the most important thing is to work together with the society in terms of planning, and to create groups and societies around positive things and not problems. A very fresh example from Wiksa city, with a festival there. There was an art yard project. We involved people for the second time in this project. When we started to work with yards, people told us about very many problems, starting from the car traffic, which is not safe for children there, up to the coverings and pavements, which are of low quality. And the second blocks said that there were more problematic environment, degraded environment, drug addicts and alcoholics around. And one active woman wanted to change something. There were no community, as a matter of fact. And we decided if we would handle these problems, it would result in that people would get tired and they won't have any motivation, because it would be a very hard and long-term task to convince all people not to park their cars close to the doors. And we should develop some values, or start to develop the existing ones. In the first case, in the Good Yard, we created a neighboring center, a small pavilion just in the street, which was to combine people, to make people opportunity to gather and discuss things. Because it turned out that people don't communicate except for people of 5 activists. And the main problem was that they don't have an opportunity and location to gather. And we decided to create this site for them, and through this perspective, and that was very quick, small project for 3 months. And people started to work on that. They built together this pavilion. They painted it with children, and they populated it with sense. And we give this opportunity to them to populate it with ideas. And they understood that the key problem was a lack of communication. We created a precedent, quite positive. That was a big party afterwards, and now kids play there around, and we really combined and connected people around something, not just discussing problems. In the second yard, the situation was much more complicated. We found a cultural center, and we found teenagers who were nothing to do there. Once we thought we can't work efficiently with the parents, we made a yard with the kids, and more older kids provided and built a place for playing for smaller kids, and they work together with them. It's quite optimistic. At least something is optimistic. We can evaluate it only after 1 year. If we visit it after 6 months or 12 months from now. Here, people looked from a different angle to their problems. We didn't try to tell to kids that it's bad that their parents are drinking because they understand it anyhow. But we told them that you can do something yourself and you can achieve something. This is a very important factor to combine, not just overcome something, because very often it won't bring you some constructive result, but start to seek for constructive methods. And what's your motivation? Who is the owner of this? Who's the customer of these values? The festival Art of Rak, that was just our participation. The problem was, on our opinion, that projects were made by residents anyhow. But based on the results of the last year, they came to the mayor and saying that something was broken in our yard, please fix it. And we were invited to take part to explain that the value of neighborhood is not in solving just housing and utility problems, and it could be wider. And the customer was the festival, which translates ideas of combining people and not only development for the sake of the development, but to make people do something in their cities, and we wanted to pass them this toolkit. Nadezhda, how and in which form, on your opinion, the city should interact with residents, with citizens and communities? Because communities not always means residents, and residents not always means communities. In which forms should this communication be organized? The city has a huge number of problems, and they need to find some compromises. I think maybe quite from a narrow angle but here you should have individual approach. You should determine who are these people to influence and work in an individual way.
Because we cannot involve everybody in everything, and sometimes there are some researches conducted, but they do not have appropriate results because these people are not the team of this project. That's why it seems to me it's very important to identify the participants of these potential teams and to work with them individually. And what about deputies who have their own interests? I can say that I don't know this, but they are not involved into this activity. We have one president that he did not come, the deputy did not come. Maybe they participated somehow, but I did not know about this. And this was a direct dialogue happens not always. There are some deputies which are responsible for some regions. Maybe you can ask this deputy to help you. Yes, we were such a case, and this deputy, he responded this way that he has pre-elections and pre-election campaign, and he said to me that now he does not have time to do this. So we did not work in a constructive way with them. So that is a key idea. We should combine not only to fight somebody, but also to create some new ideas. And also we have some potential. The founder of Airports, Sokol. Hello. Just I would like to speak about our community. It's different from the communities of my colleagues. It's not commercial. This is community of people who live in the region of Airport Sokol. We created this community several years ago. And I worked in communication and marketing of Western companies, so I realized that it's time to do something not only for shareholders of our company, but also for people. And combining in this community can enhance human life. In Moscow, there are some things which reduce the level of life of Muscovites. That's why I created this community, and for several years I run it. I have been running it. Now, the rules of successful communication. There are several rules, but in my view, the most important rule is the following. Community should give value to the participants of this community. Very often there is such an approach that we'll do some platform in internet or some physical platform. All people will come there and then we'll combine in community. But in fact, Muscovites do not have this need to spend time with his neighbor, because neighbors and relatives are not chosen. We have friends and families, and they are priorities. That's why it's not enough just to create a platform or forum. It's important to think how we can give value. And I have a community which is in Facebook, and that's why it is advantageous. It gives information. You can know any news about our region before it appears somewhere else. You can ask questions. And secondly, community should be interested. It should be easy to read. And that's why, of course, there should be city journalism. If you can't create an interesting content, you will not be able to have a lot of people in your community. How many people do you have in your community? 11,000 or 10,000? 10,570. And I can say that for first years, during the first years, I, as a micro newspaper, wrote daily the content into our group and tried to do it quite diverse. I'm sure that this really was appealing to the participants. And why did you do this? So why do you need it? Is it a charity or a desire for power? Why for several years in a row you did this hard work? Why you were toiling to do this? Psychologically, I can't even understand it. There is really a lot of time which you spent for this. Yes, I also... The moderator of community should have a lot of patience, of course. I wanted to make my life and life of some other people better, because I gave many years to my career, and thanks to my talents, I could improve the lives of American shareholders at my work. But then I wanted to apply my skills to make other people's lives better. I moved to Sokol region, and I could not understand how to live there. A Muscovite can survive in Moscow if he knows a lot of life hacks, or in any other case, the level of life would suck. It would be low, even if he is wealthy, because in this case you won't know where to buy good food, where you can find a good medical assistance, repair your car. Can you tell us about positive community? As we understand, there are different types of communities, and there can be a manager of community. Do you have this good story about good news? And how do you involve citizens into your community? And what about business? How business is getting involved? So before us, before this roundtable, we had a task to write one rule of successful community running and one problem, one mistake. Yes. And this mistake, I indicated not good management of community. So first you need to gather people in your community, and also you need to make efforts to make this. And then when you have already people in your community, these people also should not should not be left alone, because sometimes they are very negative in this community. They share a lot of negative things with other people in the communities. And very many communities, just have a lot of complaints in these communities. And what can you do? You should moderate these communities. Yes, of course. You should go into two directions. First, you need to retain these people, and also retain negative things, not retain maybe, but to stay away from negative things and try to have more positive things in your community. Olga asked about my latest method, how to run community. People complain that we have everywhere bad news. They complain themselves about something very bad, but also they don't like that other people complain. I invented such contest, good news in our region. So small business gives a prize. All people who gives posts into our groups, we then in the end of the week we look at likes, how many likes, and small business gives a prize. Small business gets some kind of awareness in this community, and people see that they have some stimulus to notice something good in their region. So what is a perfect community? So it's when people write about something good in their lives. The prize is very simple. It can be even. It can be like this. There can be a pie. One neighbor can give a pie to this person, and this is a prize. So, but this makes people look at some good things. For example, we had a video how a policeman tried to help ducks and ducklings, and he helped to walk them to cross the road. Can we monetize this community, or can a community monetize its activity? Or so can you be more commercial so your community can it be commercial? Look, I cannot monetize anything in my community because community is not a tool for me for getting profit. That's why it's impossible to do this. But we have an opportunity to give commercials, and it's important for small business. Small business can show itself. But earlier it was free, but people do not appreciate free tools. That's why now we have a commercial scheme. Is it monetization? I don't think so. And can community be monetized? It's a very difficult and comprehensive question. When the community sees some commercial thing, it becomes less attractive for participants. Participants don't want, just to be a source of monetizing. People can put up with this, but they don't like it. Yes, there can be some commercial social projects, but we have so many charity projects. Very often we help some families who live in the regions, in our region, or we have some other charity projects which are not linked with the region itself. And for some reason, people of this charity project are linked with this region. But so monetization, I don't know if it's really, whether it's really possible. So I am in this community because I live near Октябрьское поле. And this is my community, and when I had an interview about this region, I have to say about interesting places. So they already knew what house I live in. So just during 1 second, they understood where I live just because I named some restaurants and cafes. So the power of community is great, and with the help of community, we can discover a lot of things. Business makes a lot of polls, but sometimes this does not give a result, because sometimes people say one thing, but they need something else. And when you work with the community closely, the results are different. Thank you very much. Yana Maximova, PR Director of Urban Group. So, you know, speaking about Anna's opinion, you know, I disagree with this opinion. Irina also thinks that we have commercial communities, but I will explain why Urban Group company did it, because I think it's important to emphasize when the company tries to make comfortable things, and we create good architectural buildings. We invest a lot of efforts into beautiful things. Then there is a question raised: why do we need a community? For us, it's extremely important that people should also develop this region. The city is alive, it's developing, but without activists, it's impossible to enrich this environment. And we need to form an attitude to architecture. We try to make safe yachts without cars. That's why our task was like this. So first we took advantage of activists. I know that we have colleagues who chose very structured way. They conducted some interviews, social interviews. So we also now do this, but from the start we defined 4 directions: ecology, art, children, and sports. And I'm glad that we chose not a standard way, because we faced a lot of interesting things. Now we have the results of sociological interviews, and now I can see the following information, that people are really fond of sports. They like football, fitness, and there are so many people who really like it. Ecology. People love nature. They like to do something in the forest. And there were low indicators. But when we launched our own program, ecological events were very popular, like work on Saturday, creation of some furniture, and so these people like it also very much. For example, in Apalha too, this is forest area. People also were quite active in this forest. So we gave startup ideas for this. We organized the first event, and at this event we discovered those people who really like it. And for us, it was important that our society is a consumption society. We want this activists should really be involved into this. So now we have 100% of participation of activists in this. We also made a mistake. We do not have, a neighboring center. And so that's why this infrastructure we don't have this infrastructure of activists. And then we understood that we can make communities anywhere, fitness centers, embankments, and also safe yards. So our task was just to involve those owners of these places into this community. First, owners of these places were very suspicious, but then the mafia in our neighborhood is very interesting. So they also gather people, and the restaurant also started to do some business with this. And a restaurant which is opening in a new building, it cannot only have very good commercial results. So this restaurant cannot have a lot of traffic. This restaurant works in an environment which is not changing. That's why.
So we involve business which is around it, and basically how can we understand why is it important for the society? Why should we make a startup on our own? When you make an enterprise, its content, its visual image gives some sort of standard framework for people, and they have to follow it. And I was absolutely staggered because our design is in-house. For us, it's not a problem to make a good advertising. But when I saw that for the Cosmonetic Day in Khimki and P.O. Lavachkin enterprise, it's just sitting in their DNA. They made a very, very beautiful billboards for children, and I learned that it was not done in-house work. That was made by the designers among residents, who understood that we showed to people to be very attentive to these things. Now I can tell you what for us is an indicator that we are a community of people who are caring about our city, and we have some successes. Such a funny story. Our people made a photograph of ducks who went out of the pond and walking along the street. And once someone writes in Instagram, guys, these ducks can't get out of this pond for the third day. What shall we do? It was interesting for me what would be the reaction of the society. We wrote to the management company, they resorted to the veterinarians, and we wrote to our chat, please help to save ducks. It was 1.5 hours for the whole operation. 1.5 hours was enough to collect people. People went and then just gathered and checked that ducks are okay. It's just their school. They got out by themselves and flew away. But for us, it was interesting and important. Another example, people call us and say, our street, Ivan Fedorov Street, this is the flyer, the pilot, hero of the war. We want that our children passing this street, they learned about this person. We want a memory board there. But big money should be involved there because it costs money, but everything which would be not enough, we would invest. They gathered 50,000 rubles. We added another 50,000. We found a good sculpture. And it turned out that all the administrative things, all the permits was a very complicated thing, but still we made it, and we now have the commemoration board on one of the houses in this street. And that was the science that we wanted to develop. Could you say a few words about mistakes? The mistakes that we made, not you, but what you think should be avoided in the future. I think that the major mistake was not to create this thin environment of some rules which are applicable on the territory of the city. Airport, Sokol, these are old districts, historical districts, and now there's a new block of flat, no new rules. What should they? Should they write it in the agreement? Not. But if you leave it as is, then you come to conflicts on the domestic level. There are yards, there are people who have pets or dogs, and parents with children. There could be also cars parked in the middle of the lawn. So anyway, there will be conflicts, and these conflicts must be settled in a peaceful way. And we thought a lot, and then we invented a tool. We just showed them these conflicts could be solved in a humorous way. We created such badges on doors with funny verses in the way of funny advice. So if your neighbor is noisy, so do the following. And these Valentine badges, because we distributed it in Valentine Day, we are allowed to hang these badges on the door of the noisy neighbors, for example, or a neighbor with a noisy dog. So in such a humorous and funny way to make the neighbors informed about their mistakes and that they disturb others. So these dog lovers with their dogs, with their pets, kids, parents with their kids, what we created? We created a social advertising about the way how you should remove after your dogs. And this was also made with funny pictures, with cartoons, without any problems, without hurting anyone. This is an element of social conflict, of course, and we have another. So let me stop you, please. You speak about creation, but I want to touch another area. Were there something that you, as a company, thought about and in some way couldn't stop yourself, but you should, but thanks to the civil initiatives they stopped you and it didn't happen? Well, I can tell you that first, it has nothing to do with the communities. It has a lot to do with the quality of work. Our work starts with the start of sales, where there's nothing else there, but people start to buy flats there. But we have this feedback. We receive this feedback. We make meetings with initiative groups of people. And when they tell us that that's not the right way of doing things, that this is not convenient, for once one resident just mentioned one construction mistake with the balcony. So this continuous feedback with clients is organized from the very first moment we meet them. And I can't tell you that in communities something would stop us from. But in our routine work, the quality control, customer service, WhatsApp, Facebook, and other forums, all available communication tools are used to take the feedback and to react. Where do you build your site? It's the closer Moscow region, Khimki. Do you have an infrastructure? Yes, these are separately built, newly built cities. So, don't you have the infrastructure and someone would live there in the middle of the construction site? This would be a conflict situation when small children sleep in the day and there is a construction. Well, this is the way the construction is going on. We make, of course, quick feedback with the quality control and customer service with the management quality. For instance, if constructors just violate these peaceful hours, then we react very quickly. Let's finalize. Victoria Kondrashova, AJ Creating Director. We have little time. I will do my best to be brief. We speak about the same things. We build societies around popular topics. These are kids, environment, kids as the simplest way to build a community, and other topics. Sports, we more or less speak about same things, and all the mechanisms we're discussing, they're practically similar, practically the same. And we are on another level. We have a built community, and now we find ways how to bring out the developer out of the community. And I think this is not a problem, this is a question that we don't have an answer. And because sooner or later everyone would face it. We went the way of culture, and initially, in principle, we didn't use it as a PR or a marketing strategy. For us, it was an experience, a challenge, whether we are able to bring people together by cultural elements, by cultural tools. And what we received, we are pleasant to see. Now we start our relations with urbanists, with sociologists who teach people how to build territorial communities of self-management, the institutes using which the residents of microcities coexist. And this is a question to everyone. We'll try to find answers. I think the main mistake we faced, and we can state it, is the total way from top to bottom. You asked where participation of controlling body ends, wherever we could call it, a developer, a PR, one person, or some authorities, municipal authorities. For us, it ends there where residents stop communicating. Every programs, conditionally called programs, for instance, summer program. We have 3 cultural centers with yards, with a big number of citizens coming there. And when we opened the first cultural center, or it was the second one basically, we just generated the program we considered it should be, because we are carriers of the highest content, the highest knowledge. We won't place just kittens with balloons. We will bring them high culture. And we understood that people are not interested, they don't buy it. If you start to explain something, and after you did something, whatever it would be, a nice skateboard yard, but they want some bicycle roads or something else. If the developer does it, he wants something from the commercial point of view. If the district does it, then he wants to increase the tariffs. There is always an element of mistrust. From the very beginning, you shouldn't lose this trust. And for us, we delineated it. Whatever we would do, first of all, we consult with the residents. And in every cultural center, there are different indicators. Here is economy class, here is a comfort class. What is in the business class? Maybe other. Is it a business model? What is it? I would think it is. So you spend the money of the marketing, you don't understand whether it's payback or not. Because generally speaking, the money is spent is the cost of the flat, right? Maybe you can reduce the cost of flat and people would buy it. Why should it? People would come together without you. No, marketing budget was initially existent, otherwise it would be spent for commercials, for advertising. This is our small victory, that this is the function of social responsibility for the developer, saying that this part should be spent in this way. In one of our projects in the south, for 50%, we have close relations with the district administration, which is interesting for them, and they would be customer of our society. They are more integrated in the society than we are. Have you eaten up a big part of marketing budget? Not a big one. Unfortunately, we plan to do more. We work on that, and as a rule, I would call the following mistake: the high quality of content, nevertheless, because people won't buy what you do not like yourself. if it's good, and if you don't think it's good, and still you can't offer it to people. And if continuity works, if you started doing it, do not give it up. You shouldn't lose it. You shouldn't give it up halfway, because then you lose your trust completely. I'm, as a moderator, have given more time for everyone, and still we have to ask questions. If you have questions to some of the speakers, please. If not, then maybe personally, you can do it personally afterwards. Please, meanwhile, think about it. We talked a lot about everything. We tried to have accurate questions and accurate answers, but I didn't hear the friendly neighborhood. What is that? How can we express that? Now people live behind closed doors. We have you as developers, you build housing, but again, it's all closed. On one hand, you open it, you try to provide more communication opportunity, but at the same time, 84 locks are existent. So I wish I would live in a block of flat, in a house, or have an object in my district where I could come and I would be called by name, and I would be asked, Olga, how was your day? What with your kids? Is your son okay? So these personal relations is trust, and it means real good neighborhood when we can trust someone to pick up the kid from school, or call someone who works together, who work close to IKEA, where you should go from through the whole city. He would pass by and buy what you need there and bring to your district. So we should work on these good neighborly relations, and this interaction won't stop at the moment when the community is created, when the community is produced, and when we need something from each other. Because the most important here is the friendly human relations. We were turned off. Time is up very quickly. Let's thank our participants. Thank you very much.